Hello and welcome to this UCU Green Reps training. My name's Karen. I'm UCU's Head of Training and Education. Today we're going to be looking at the role and functions of a green rep, and in a little while I'm going to take you through some slides that we have to hopefully explain more about the role. But initially I'm going to introduce you to my colleague Marianne, who is going to tell you also a little bit about her role and her responsibilities around the environment and around green reps. Marianne.
Hi, thanks, Karen, and welcome everybody. So my name's Marianne Quick. I'm a negotiations and bargaining official, and I have the pleasure of looking after UCU's climate and sustainability brief, which means helping coordinate the work of our green reps and also our policy and developing our policy and actions on climate and sustainability issues. Throughout today's presentation, we'll refer to both environmental reps and green reps and use those terms interchangeably because we're aware that lots of different branches use both of those terms, and we'll explain a bit further on in the presentation as to why that's the case.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you very much, Marianne. I am going to try and share my screen. First of all, I'm going to take this banner off the bottom, and then I'm going to try and share my screen with you. She says confidently.
Go for it.
So let's give this a go and see the wonders of modern technology. Okay, so I am also going to take Marianne's and my face off the screen so that you can just concentrate on the presentation. So today what we're going to do is we're going to look at who, how and why green reps. We're going to look at green reps' rights. We are going to look at some of the functions that you may want to do in your branch and perhaps some of the wider environmental functions. We are going to look at getting members more involved and how that might look like from an organising perspective. And then we are going to look at future help and development. So what resources are out there, what support is out there for you. So that's roughly how the theme of this session is going to go. So first of all, we're going to look at who, how and why. And we're going to try and do this in a kind of slight question and answer type debate. So the first question is, why should the branch have green reps? So Marianne, can you put some more meat on the bones of that for us?
I will try my best. So I think it's undeniable that unless carbon-based energy is radically reduced, the world faces a crisis in which the poorest will suffer the most, but all of us will be affected. And there's a growing body of scientific evidence to demonstrate that that is the case. So the dangers of inaction are extremely serious. And so it's been recognised for well, since our founding Congress, UCU's founding Congress in 2007, UCU is committed to play its part in a number of different initiatives, whether that's greening our institutions where we work or greening the curriculum and embedding climate and sustainability and climate justice into the curriculum that we delivered, to developing and assisting campaigns for sustainable national policies and local practices. And we believe that, and our members believe that green reps should become a fundamental part of UCU's democratic structures.
Brilliant, brilliant. Thank you for that. There's quite a lot there. So what we're gonna do as we go through this presentation is kind of break some of that down in a little bit more detail for you. So kind of starting that process off really. Marianne, who can become a green rep?
anybody, so any UCU member who has a keen interest in the subject or is enthusiastic, should be able to volunteer and stand up to become a green rep. We do also have former and existing UCU health and safety reps who've taken on the role and responsibility of becoming a green rep, existing departmental reps, or someone who's actually not thought that they could make a contribution to the work of UCU before, but who wants to promote a green agenda in their workplaces. So it really is for anybody.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you. And I guess for branches who might be viewing this, it's a really good way to bring on other activists, is to look at the green and the environmental agenda. That's brilliant. Thank
Absolutely.
you. How do I guess for those who may not know particularly about how branch committee structures work, and I don't think this is necessarily the webinar to go into the details of a branch committee, but how do green reps or environmental reps fit with the current kind of structures in the branch?
So they can be elected.
Mm-hmm.
If they want to stand as a green rep, they can be elected as along with any other branch role, whether that's branch chair or branch secretary or departmental reps. But as a starting point, I think the thing to do is to approach the branch committee or executive, saying that you are interested in starting that role. And as long as the branch committee recognise you in that role and let us know,
Brilliant.
then you can stand to become a green rep.
That's brilliant. Thank you. Thanks for that. That's a lot clearer. Thank you. And how many green reps can a branch have?
Well, ideally, just like we'd have a departmental rep for every department or organisational sort of unit within an institution, we'd have a green rep. So either one in every department or school or faculty, but there is no prescription as to how many a branch should have. And we're going to talk a bit further on in the presentation about how much facilities time we can bargain for to ensure that all the reps are covered that we need them to be.
Brilliant. Brilliant. Thank you for that. And you've already covered for us earlier, like the best title for the role. So just to reiterate that, as Marianne said earlier, some branches choose to call people environmental reps, some branches choose to call people green reps. Increasingly, the idea of a green rep is kind of broadly understood, but just to kind of reiterate that it is really down to it's the branch's decision as to what.
Yeah, I mean, we have some branches who've called them climate crisis reps to sort of highlight, or climate and ecological reps to highlight the different sort of priorities their branch wants to progress.
Brilliant. Oh, that's really useful. That's really useful. Thank you. So just moving on, we're going to look at your rights as a green rep. I'm going to use green rep from here on in, rather than trying to use both, because that's kind of what I'm used to using. So as a green rep, what rights do you have off for trade union duties or activities? Marianne, do you think you could say something about that for us?
Yeah, so unlike other roles within the branch, like health and safety or union learning reps, green reps don't have a statutory right, so that's a legal right to time off for their trade union duties or activities. However, UCU and other unions are lobbying to try and get this recognised as a statutory right to time off. And so, in the meantime, facilities time should be negotiated and bargained for with the employer. And there's a section later on where we can talk and explore about that.
Brilliant. Thank you. So I mean, one of the bullet points here is we've got that it's the branch to negotiate for facility time. So I'm guessing what you're saying is, partly we'll look at it a bit later, but it's the branch that does that negotiating for facility time for a green rep. Have I got that correct?
Yeah, so if the branch has sort of determined that this is going to be one of their priorities,
Yep.
they should put forward this as a claim alongside other aspects of what they're asking the employer to do. And there is a quick guide that we've written on an approach for branches to be able to follow on highlighting the need as to why that's important. So if the employer is genuinely serious about addressing the climate emergency, then they should be open to allocating time off for green reps to engage in climate and sustainability issues.
Brilliant, thank you. I've just put the link on the screen there. That will disappear in a little while, but obviously as you're rewatching this, you'll be able to kind of copy and paste it and pop it into a search. Looking at putting pressure on, so somebody's elected, they've got some facility time, putting on pressure to perhaps the senior management team for facility time. How would somebody go about mobilizing support for that? Because obviously what we've put is mobilizing members to put pressure on. So what might that look like for a green rep as part of their role?
Yeah, so I think it's sort of raising this so it's in the broader branch membership's consciousness that this is something that the branch want to work towards. And if the employer, like I say, if the employer is going to be serious about that, then our branch officers, our green reps, need time off their day jobs to be able to focus on that and doing a really good job in progressing things seriously. So greater backing and support of your members then equals greater leverage for reps to be able to negotiate facilities time to be able to do that. So there's three key demands really. The role of the green rep should be recognised by the employer and afforded time off for training, just like other branch officers are. There should be additional facilities time for the branch allocated to the role. So this is not instead of, the facilities time that's given to a union learning rep, for example. This is in addition to. And then clear procedures should be established with any environmental or related policies and strategies that include that key role for the green rep to engage with on behalf of the branch.
Brilliant, brilliant. That's a really good way of looking at that then, actually, isn't it? Is those three: time off, additional time, and procedures, policies and procedures. Brilliant.
Yes.
Thank you for that. Yeah, that's really helpful. So can you give us an example of perhaps how a green rep might work with a health and safety rep or an equality rep or a learning rep within the branch? Because part of what we said is issues around the environment pervade all of our lives every day, all areas of our lives, be it physical environments, or more general issues around climate change. So bringing that back down to the branch, how might a green rep work with other branch officers?
I think the possibilities are endless. So issues relating to the climate crisis and education for sustainable development, for example, link really well with those other roles. So whether that's training or identifying training and development needs for how we might embed sustainable development into our curriculums or broader operations of the institution would be a key feature that the green rep and ULR could work together on. Or carrying out environmental audits with the health and safety rep in terms of the institution's facilities operations, clean air, travel policies. It should very much be a coordinated and a strategic approach so that the time can be most effectively used across the different branch structures.
Brilliant, brilliant. Thank you for that. That's really clear. ULR, by the way, is Union Learning Rep, or UCU, UCU Union Learning Rep, or UCU Learning Rep. Again, if you pop onto the ULR pages of our UCU website, you will find more information about the role of a Union Learning Rep. So you've already kind of established that link between the greater the backing of your members, the stronger case you have for facility time. So there's probably no real need to go back over that, but just to reiterate that, if you are struggling as a branch, then you would need to be looking at your members' support to help you gain facility time for that. And also just to say, structurally you will have a regional office. So if there perhaps aren't many of you in a branch, but this is still a role you want to take up, if you're struggling to get engagement from the employer, then you might want to contact your local regional office. And again, if you go to the UC website, type in regional office as a search, it should come up as to where your local regional office is. Now, the last thing we've got here, which is obviously quite important again, is it's not in the employer's gift to say who the UCU Green Rep will be. And I know we get this on a lot of courses where the employer will say, no, I don't want you to be a health and safety rep, or I don't want you to be an equality rep, I want that person. So it is literally just to reiterate that it is not in the employer's gift to say who this person is. As Marianne was talking about earlier, Green Reps are elected within the branch, so it is very much a branch and a member decision. Do you want to say any more about that, Marianne, or shall we carry on?
I know, I think you've covered it, Karen.
That's fine. Okay, cool. Right, let's continue. So what we're going to do now is move on to functions. So the things you might be expected to do, or that you might want to get involved in, things that perhaps other Green Reps around the country and branches around the country have gotten involved in. So we've put on here that this is not an exhaustive list, and it is absolutely not. At this stage, this is just to give you some pointers really about things that you might want to get involved in. And I'm going to see if Marianne can offer us some more kind of detail on this, or suggestions. So the first thing is, what are your institution's environmental targets and how they link with the new Green Deal? So could you just very briefly tell us, Marianne, something around the Green New Deal document, and something around institutions' environmental targets and how a Green Rep might get involved with that?
Yeah, sure. So the UCU's Green New Deal for colleges and universities is a set of claim sort of documents and support for branches to progress, a progressive agenda on climate and sustainability issues. And there's a separate training course for UCU Green Reps to look at how that operates. But in summary, it brings together policy which has been set by both UCU and the National Union of Students within a negotiating and bargaining framework. So this is where our branches set the agenda about what they would like to see, rather than responding to the employer's latest initiative. And sometimes we see that as greenwashing, which is where employers just put forward a set of proposals where they think that's going to tick a few boxes. Some institutions might have set themselves some environmental targets about being more environmentally friendly. So they might have some carbon emission statements. They might have some statements around expenditure on consumables such as lighting and packaging or heating and cooling systems. And what the Green New Deal does is it sets a framework by which we can interrogate whether that's good enough or goes far enough. And so one of the functions might be for a Green Rep is to really sit down and look at those initiatives and whether it meets our, minimum expectations around those areas. But it also allows us to, like I said before, set that as a progressive agenda. I think it's important to also say that as a Green Rep, you don't need to be an expert in all those different fields. It's quite multifaceted. There's lots of different layers and areas, whether it's travel or food and land use. So that's what we're here for, the bargaining negotiations team. We're here as another resource to help you navigate some of those areas. So please do contact us if you do come across something that you're not unsure of, and ask us. We're more than happy to answer questions and talk through some of those things in more detail. But what you can do is begin to make some noise and push your employer and your branch around setting targets and sharing that information with members.
Brilliant. That's brilliant. Thank you. The next couple of questions I'm going to take together how are green issues negotiated in your branch, because I'm guessing that's something that Green Reps will need to find out about if they don't know already, and how a Green Rep might become an integral part of their branch if they're not already. Now, I know that in the previous slide, Marianne set out that from Congress 2007, I think, she'll correct me if I'm wrong. Thank you. Our policy moving forward was to take up green issues. So I guess part of it is entrenched in that. But so how might a Green Rep progress issues within the branch and become, kind of an integral part of the branch? Marianne, I wonder if you could say a few words.
Yeah, I think the first starting point is to do an assessment of what is going on already, but also to start talking to other groups and stakeholders within the institution and in the local community about what they want to see happen. So I've already mentioned Students Organising for Sustainability is a group that we work really closely with now. In fact, we've seconded their Director of Education to work for UCU one day a week, so we can really make some headway on the climate and sustainability agenda. So it's talking to the local students' union, it's talking to other campus unions, it's talking to our members about what their priorities might be. And, from that, you might then want to set out what your priorities are as a branch, whether that's around energy consumption or travel policies, or the curriculum, or starting off with smaller targets that you might want to sort of get to grips with. So there really is lots of different ways you can start getting this on the branches and the employer's agenda. And I think that initial sort of fact-finding approach might be getting to understand how green issues are currently negotiated in the branch, if they are at all, or whether it's just a diktat that comes down from the employer. Is there an environmental committee? Do these issues currently looked at health and safety committee? So what is the forum by which the unions and the employer talk about these issues? And that's something that probably one of the first jobs would be to find out how that takes place.
Brilliant. Thank you very much for that. Um, just to pick up on the point that was being discussed, in that at this stage, well, at any stage really, you don't need to be an expert in any or all of these issues. I mean, if you wanted to have a look at the Green New Deal document, you will see the various subject heading areas laid out in there. Please don't feel that you need to be an expert in any of those. That is why UCU has a structure to help and support in those areas. Um, can I just look at, we've put raising awareness among members of green issues. So could you give us an example perhaps of just one thing that somebody might practically be able to do to start raising awareness? Just perhaps I mean, if you can, a kind of 2 or 3 steps to raising awareness among members. I guess it would start by telling people who you are and where they can find you, and potentially they can bring issues to you. But do you want to say anything more about that?
Yeah, I think, doing a shout out in a branch update or newsletter to say, we now have a branch green rep, or I am the new green rep, I want to hear from you, is a really good start. I think something that's worked well in other branches is around setting up action groups on this as a particular issue. A lunchtime action group where we sit and identify issues, and I think we talk about those a bit later on. But yeah, and as I said, linking up with other stakeholders within the institution to sort of start to say, we're here and we want to hear from you as to what we prioritise under this agenda.
Brilliant. Thank you for that. Um, and I guess just in summary of this particular slide, we've got, it is your role to develop, and hopefully from the discussion so far, you've seen that it is, there are many levels at which you can get involved. Um, so it is something that you can tailor to your specific areas of interest, and also, I guess more importantly, around where the branch wants to go in terms of working with the employer and challenging the employer on their green issues.
Yeah, I
Okay.
think another good place to start actually around developing the role is to having a look at the branch's own sort of practices and approaches to green issues. Um, so, for example, the branch itself declaring a climate emergency demonstrates that they're taking the lead and that they want the employer to follow. So, are we being consistent with our asks of our employer with how we are organising ourselves as a branch?
Brilliant. Yes. Yeah, that's a really good point, because I guess otherwise we're expecting the employer to do things that actually we're not doing ourselves. So there is a kind of follow our lead um, type of issue with that, isn't there?
Yeah.
Thank you. Let's just move on to, we've got another slide on functions. So again, kind of more things that you may want to do or get involved in. And as I mentioned before about your regional office, so you might want to get involved in your regional and national UCU structures. And there is the address for environment at. Marianne, can you just sort of say a little bit more about what structures are around? And I know you said you've just set up a Slack group. Could you just say a little bit about that as well?
Yeah, so some regions have started exploring their own regional networks for green reps. And so if you're unsure whether your region has one, or you'd like your region to start one, then, please do email us at environment@UCU, and also copy in your regional office, and we'll be able to direct you to those sort of regional structures. We've also given advice on engaging in broader regional initiatives like regional TUC, what they're doing. And we do have national structures related to our climate and sustainability work. So you can find out what's going on with our broader environmental campaigns, so the political lobbying that we're doing and the work that we're doing with other unions. And you can sign up for our discussion list or join our Green Reps Slack pages, which has a whole host of different channels on different subjects. So, for example, we have a channel on what work we're doing towards COP26. We've got channels on declaring a climate emergency, and one on industrial relations, following on what we've talked about in terms of facility time. So you can access other Green Reps and ask them questions about what work they've been doing in their branches. And the sign up is on the ticker tape there, and also available on our webpage. So if you can't find anything, again, just email us and we'll have a look at it.
Brilliant. Thank you, Mary Ann. I think you've probably covered the involvement in wider environmental campaigns there as well, unless there's any more you wanted to say on that. But if not, then we could go on to developing UCU strategy locally to respond to employer initiatives. Now, I guess what I don't want somebody to do is be a new Green Rep who's suddenly thinking that they are going to be responsible for the union's response locally to every single strategy that the employer brings out as from tomorrow. So I was elected yesterday, and now tomorrow I'm responsible for. So could you just say a little bit more about how people can start slowly around that sort of bullet point?
Yeah, and I think it's like with any employer initiative on anything that they want to progress. The cynical side of me is that would say that well, they're just going to go through the motions and will jump when they say they need our sign off of something. So it's important not to sort of get bogged down with something because the employers just come to us. And sometimes an employer will propose an initiative around environmental issues that the branch will want to respond to. But as with everything, that we need to take our time and we need to consider that. So I don't know, a new travel policy that the employer wants to implement. So part of your role will be coordinating a response with a climate focus. And you don't have to worry if you're not an expert on carbon management plans, but you do have access to a range of resources and advice and support, either on our webpage or by emailing us, where we can talk through what a robust response might want to feature. And you'd work with the broader branch committee on pulling together that response.
Brilliant. Thank you for that. Just moving on then, we've got a bullet point here about working with other officers of the branch, so with union learning reps, health and safety reps, perhaps equality reps. Is it possible to perhaps give an example of something that a green rep might work with, say, a health and safety rep on around a kind of workplace or local issue?
Yeah, so one example might be engaging with the health and safety rep and broader membership on their own working environments. So teaching spaces that might be too hot or too cold are almost the same, environmental issue as they are a health and safety issue. So they might indicate waste on cooling and heating systems with associated costs attached. And it's also something that affects our student population, who's another really powerful group in enabling us to leverage the employer in moving towards a more sustainable way of operating the campuses. So they would be, two key groups that you'd need to coordinate with in sort of addressing that as an issue. And so the quality of our physical environments is also something we can use to involve and engage members on.
Mm-hmm. So how might that then link perhaps to the next bullet point, which talks about curriculum development? Because it might be an area that perhaps reps don't feel that they have any jurisdiction or any say in. It's kind of seen as very much, that's the government's, that's the employer's, like, responsibility to sort out. So how might a green rep garner support for developing a curriculum with a trade union perspective around green issues?
Yeah, I have to admit, when I first started in this role, this element of the brief was one which I was just completely overwhelmed with when I first looked at it, because it's so huge. That said, there are lots of different ways in to start looking about how we may embed climate and sustainability, and more now climate justice aspects to the work that our members do. And that's not just teaching facing roles, that's also any sort of role in which our members are engaged with learners, from facilities and management roles within how the organisation operates. Learning resources, IT resources can all play their part in embedding climate and sustainability issues. So there is, again, this is part of our Green New Deal, and there's a quick guide which looks at why it's important and how green reps can start to raise the issue of embedding climate and sustainability issues into the curriculum. And we do have a CPD session, which I think is on we talk about further on in the presentation, about raising that awareness amongst all our members on why this is a critical aspect of the work that we need to do if we're going to challenge the climate emergency.
Brilliant. Thank you. And as if by magic, on that very note, we're moving on to looking at how we can get members involved. So, stuff around organising and mobilising members. We're not in this slide going to get into the differences between organising and mobilising. So, for this presentation, we are just going to look at organising. So the first bullet point on this side very much kind of carries on from what you were just saying, Marianne, which is curriculum is arguably the closest to most members' hearts. And UCU have dedicated continued CPD, continued professional development courses to look at greener ways of working and how we can green, if you like, the curriculum. And I think in the next slide, or one of the upcoming slides, don't worry, we have a contact that you can, again, that you can copy and paste to find out more about that. I wonder, Marianne, if you could say something around surveys and perhaps link that in with majority petitions, because I think the two kind of very much go together in terms of, so firstly, in terms of getting people's view on a particular subject, and then in terms of using that information for an organising purpose. Is it possible to sort of say something around those two?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think the key thing about surveys is we don't overuse them. because members get fatigued in filling out yet another survey. So it's important that you do coordinate that with the broader branch and pick a good time in which to commence a member survey. But it's a really good starting point on initiating that conversation around green issues within the branch. It can be a measure of a member's appetite on, whether there's more green reps out there that want to get involved, and a way of identifying potential future activists. But critically, you might have a list of 6 key areas that you think the branch should start progressing on, and use a survey to help identify what those priorities are for members. So you might have an idea as a green rep, but members might have another set of priorities which you'd be able to explore. And it's really important that we do that and take their views on board, so we can take members with us on that journey by which we need to increase leverage and pressure on the employer. So the difference between a survey and a majority petition, and a majority petition is just that. So it's when we get the majority of our membership signed up to a set of principles or actions. So, for example, you might have been having, ongoing discussions with the employer about their use of single-use plastics on campus. The employer's not budging because it's a faff for them to find a new provider, or they're engaged in a long-standing contract. And so you might decide to run that as a campaign. And I suggest you do that alongside the student union group as well. So you might run that big campaign on single-use plastics and banning those on campus, but prepare a petition about staff willing to sign that who will boycott, the use of the campaign until the employer makes the changes you have requested. And so it allows that to be more visible if people are openly willing to sign their name and their department to a majority petition for you then to use as evidence and leverage with the employer.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you for that. I'm just going to, I know it covers up the last couple of bullet points there, but I'm just going to put that up on the screen, which is the link to the curriculum, CPD, continuing professional development stuff that Marianne was talking about earlier. So I'm going to hide that again so that you can see the rest of the board. Okay, so the idea with the majority petition then is that you go to the employer once you have a critical mass of whatever the branch has decided, say, I don't know, say 70 or 90%. So once you have, say, 70 or 90% of members signed up, willing to put their name on the line, on the dotted line, and have that go to the employer, then once you have that critical mass, then you take that to the employer. And that is a really powerful way of sending a message to an employer that that staff are that staff and members, because you can get non-UCU members to sign a majority petition as well, because very often that's actually a nice way of getting more people involved, and certainly more people interested in UCU. So thank you for that, because that is really, really powerful. The other two bullet points, I think, because I do want to come on to workplace audits and make responsibilities for who does workplace audits very clear. But the other two bullet points here is working groups who report their findings to the branch, and discussion groups, and possibly kind of action groups would fall into the discussion group. In actual fact, perhaps action group is a better term than discussion group. I wonder if you could just say a couple of things on what a working group might look like and what an action group might look like. So that's points 4 and 5 there.
Yeah, so this is about helping to spread the workload of the role of a green rep, because we don't want to overface anybody with too much. So this is about getting other people interested and engaged and involved in the strategy that the branch might want to pursue. So a working group would be like a smaller group of members where you can identify and discuss issues. You might be looking at a particular policy that you want to propose for the employer to follow, and develop that sort of negotiating strategy around that. So that would be a particular specific task that a working group might look at. And it always helps to be able to bounce ideas off other people and to talk through problems as they arise. The discussion or action group is something that has worked well in other branches, as I say. This is a really good way you can bring members together via a particular, you might have a climate emergency action group, and you invite to that, UCU members, other campus unions, student groups. You might also have local climate community groups that have got a particular interest in how the university or college are operating or using its campuses, and bringing them together. And each action group might have a particular focus or issue or topic for discussion. It can be a really good place to learn where your members may have influence. They might have from outside the workplace. So you might find somebody in your action group who's, relative as a local councillor, or someone's son or daughter is a prominent member of Greenpeace or other climate activist groups, such as XR. And so bringing together a sort of a group of people with that shared interest and focus might be able to assert pressure in support of a broader campaign and a broader set of demands as you progress in the strategy with the branch. And they don't have to be a lot. They could just be on a lunchtime. I know the University of Sheffield used to do lunchtime action groups in the days when we could have physical lunches, and then I'm sure they will return, where the branch agreed, we'll get a set of sandwiches for everybody and come down, and we're going to have a discussion and a focus on a particular issue. So they do work really well. I think the important distinction between an action group and a discussion group is it's focused on actions and doing things. So there's an agreed set of actions that you come away from those meetings with, and ideally people taking on board. If you come out with 5 actions and they're shared equally amongst those people that are interested, then you're going to progress a lot quicker.
Brilliant, thank you. That's really cool. And ER being Extinction Rebellion, is that?
XR, Extinction Rebellion,
XR. Okay, brilliant. So the action groups are more like kind of community. So they're more kind of community groups than just really focused kind of perhaps members groups, because they involve more broader outside organizations that might be able to support campaigns and your organizing agenda. Have I got that right? Yeah,
I mean, you might want to start off initially with members and then invite other trade unions on campus along, to then the students' unions, to then broader community groups. And I think the community part of the jigsaw will more likely fit into place once you've had those initial, inside campus discussion, somebody might go away and say, right, I'm going to go away and find out what community groups might be interested in joining this action group, and then they'll come to our next meeting. So it's a sort of organically developed process.
Brilliant. That's perfect. Yeah, and I guess as people's as a as somebody who's perhaps a new green rep's confidence increases, you can start quite near home and then broaden out as you get more confident, and as you kind of get your head around the subject matter a little bit more, and you gain those networks and those support networks gradually with other people outside of your institution. That's really
Exactly
helpful.
that.
Thank you.
Yeah, and it's also about promoting the work, all the other work that the union does.
Yeah.
And it's, not a lot of people realise how much work UCU does in terms of the climate sustainability agenda. So it's about, yes, the unions negotiate on pay and conditions, but we also do this. And I think there's a broader lesson there for getting more and more groups involved, and community, the broader community involved in how institutions operate and the union works within.
Yeah, that's really useful. Thank you. And universities, schools, college, adult education, and prison education. These are communities, and they don't work in silos. What they do affects members of the community. So that's a really good way of bringing all of those interest groups together. Just moving on, we're not far from the end. So I just want to look at workplace environmental audits. So could you do two things for me? Could you say very briefly what one is, and also how a green rep might feed into that? And I guess at this stage it is might feed into it because a green rep is not responsible for doing it. So would it be possible for you to just say a little bit about what one is, and then how a green rep might be involved in one somehow?
Yeah, sure. I mean, workplace environmental audits are a bit like health and safety audits in terms of assessing the different operations that take place within an organisation. And I think the first port of call for a newly appointed green rep would be to ask for a copy of the latest environmental audit. One, you're going to find out whether it's been done, and two, if that's provided to you or you're signposted to that, that gives a really good indication of what work has been done or what work needs to be done, and the sort of issues that might raise. There is also a really good introduction to environmental audits and how to carry those out that students organising for sustainability do. And we've agreed that if a branch wants to look at that as training, then we could deliver that jointly with the students' union locally. And again, that's a really good opportunity to start building those networks within the college or university from the ground up. But yeah, it's there'll be information in there that you won't understand perhaps, and that's quite all right. But again, just contact us if you need any technical advice on the audit that's been produced, or as a result of an audit that you want to talk through and ask questions on. We're more than happy to go through that with you.
Brilliant, brilliant. Thank you for that. Just moving on to, really, we've called this small section call to action, and then we're going to look at where else you might go for support. So your first job, if you like, is to make sure that you are nominated by your branch as a green rep. Once that's done, or you've been elected as a green rep, obviously, it depends on your branch setup, how that works in your branch. But certainly, you need to be letting the branch know that you're really interested in taking on the green rep role. And the next stage is to let UCU membership team, and there's the email address there, the contact there. Let them know that you've been voted as a green rep. The next stage, if you choose to, is to sign up for the Green New Deal bargaining training. And once you are on our list of green reps, we will advertise those to you as and when they come up. And also to subscribe to the discussion list forum if you're not already part of that list, and the address is just there. Marianne, do you want to say anything about any of those bullet points before we move on to where people can get a bit more support?
Yeah, I mean, just on letting us know and UCU membership know, whether that comes from the branch secretary or branch chair or president, formally to membership and to environment. What that means is we know you are out there and we know you exist, and because we're not directly linked to branches, unless you access the membership team and environment to know, and then we know we can put your name aside the branch in terms of who to contact on environmental issues. So just make sure that formal notifications come through to us.
Brilliant. Thank you for that. Just going to move on now, and we've got a couple of slides that look at help, support, and future development. So what I'm going to do for this section is I'm not necessarily going to read out everything that is on the screen. But what I will ask you to do, Marianne, if that's all right, is just to pick up on. So I know you've mentioned students organising for sustainability, who we work quite closely with already. I know you've mentioned those before, so I didn't know if there was any more you wanted to say on that, and whether there are any other of those three bullet points, whether you wanted to expand on anything else there, or whether that just does what it says on the tin kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, pretty much. I mean, SOS UK is a charitable arm of the NUS. They were doing so much work that they sort of created a whole sort of charitable arm focusing on sustainability issues within universities and colleges, and they're really, really knowledgeable and experts in progressing these issues. I just think if you're going to take away anything from this course, it's about how important it is to work with our students on progressing this agenda, because that's how we're going to get the real attention of our employers in engaging with this with these issues meaningfully. In terms of people and planet, again, they've produced some really good resources. They've got a list of all the different universities and developing a list for colleges on how progressive those organisations are. So do check out their tables on that, on the People and Planet website. And Teach the Future, I've just got to give a shout out because they're extraordinary group of pupil and student activists who are doing quite astounding things in terms of their lobbying profile and trying to progress a Climate Emergency Education Act. And yeah, they do support any of their stuff because they're fantastic. And in terms of the CPD program we just mentioned earlier on, so we've got 4 CPD courses now, which are aimed, and they're all free, They're aimed at members around, what is climate and sustainability, as an introduction. We have one on embedding education for sustainability in curriculum. We've got a decarbonise and decolonise course, and also something we've not talked about today, but we should give a brief mention to, is how to put on a climate learning event within your institution. And this is another great way of getting more members involved in this as an issue. The CPD courses have been really, really popular. We've recruited more green reps through that route, and sort of done that job of educating our members of some of the key issues. So if you want to put if your own branch wants to put on one of these CPD events, then the email address for Rob Hancock is up there on the screen, or email environment, and we can put you in touch. And this really will help set up shaping the local negotiating agenda around climate issues.
Brilliant. Thank you. We've got one more slide, I think. She says constantly. So I don't know if you want to say anything about any of these organisations a little more than is already there. Did you want to pick up on any of those at
No,
all?
that's just for information, really. UCU is one of the founding members of the Greener Jobs Alliance, and we sit on their steering group. They do some fantastic work on progressing, climate issues within workplaces. The TUC, we sit on a trade union sustainability development advisory committee, and that's the sort of forum where we liaise with other trade unions across the UK on progressing these issues. And Friends of the Earth and New Economics Foundation, their web addresses are there, so you can see what they're looking at developing at the moment.
Brilliant. Thank you very much for that. And that should bring us to the end of that. I will stop sharing the screen, and hopefully, as if by magic, you should see both our faces on the screen again. Hi. Love it when a plan comes together. So that kind of brings us to the end of our presentation. So I suppose if we were going to have a kind of a very brief bullet point roundup, we would be going, let people know that you're a green rep, let members know where you are, let them know how they can contact you. There's the stuff around facility time, make sure the branch are pushing to get you facility time, the recognition that actually there isn't any at the moment, but get the branch on the case to be negotiating for facility time. Arguably, your first job might be asking for an environmental audit, asking the employer where the environmental audit is, and that might inform your decisions over the next few weeks and months. Have a look and see when the next Green New Deal course is, and that way you will be able to kind of get more into the bargaining guidance, because that course is based around the Green New Deal bargaining guidance. Keep in touch with the web pages, with the environment web pages, because any latest information will be on there. And then also using the support that has already been mentioned. And I guess to say, if you're a new green rep, you are really not expected to know absolutely everything. Nobody is ever expected to know everything. We're always learning, things are always changing. You have to start somewhere, but use the support that's around you for that. So thank you very much for attending today. We are really pleased that you could join us. If you need to go back to the beginning, if you need to watch this again, if you need to copy and paste things, please do. We may well do do more of these around particular subjects in the future, and I'm guessing we will probably do an updated version of this at some point in the future. So again, really pleased you could join us, and thank you so much, Marianne, for your knowledge and your experience and your guidance. It's been really useful. It's
An
brilliant.
absolute pleasure. And just, yeah, a reminder, if you get stuck or you just even want to say hi where you're working, please do email us. It'll be lovely to hear from you and how you're getting on.
Brilliant. Thank you for that. We are always up for people saying hello. You'd be surprised how many people don't just say hello, and it's just nice to know that people are there and using some of the materials that we produce. So we will hopefully see you on courses soon, and we are going to end this broadcast right now.